Returning from executive session to resume the meeting of the chairs meeting, and we've got a number of items, but they're not heavy, so we might be able to get through all of them. Just reviewing our committee reports, our committee activity from the chairs, and we'll start with Vice President Lightfoot since he has an engagement in 20 minutes. So let's start with Public Safety, Recreation, and Human Services.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Not anything here that is, I'm looking for my notes. I did meet with Commander Carrera couple of last week, and we did go over some stuff. I'm trying to find my notes real quickly. Does anybody have any questions that come out? Okay, here we go. That come out. Obviously feel free to ask. We're getting rid of our horse, Shamrock. Shamrock is getting sold, okay, for $5,000, okay, and we're looking at
that a good horse price?
Yeah, these horses, man. When they get up in age, they're still pretty expensive. They can go up to $8,000.
I actually thought it was more than that. Okay.
Yeah, that's I guess the range that people give them for when they're selling them to municipalities like police departments and stuff. I guess they kind of give them a huge discount. So we got the DWI grant, which is $390, $389, of course, was Shamrock, and the horse. Over time, I did ask Mitch about that, and for special events, and there's definitely some aligned in that particular transmittal. But other than that, there was nothing else that was really anything that hadn't come before us before, or that is anything that I saw that was significantly troubling in any way. So.
On the overtime, well, not really overtime, but kind of related. Did you remember the question I had about Wegmans cops, Wegmans use of police?
Yes, I'm sorry, Madam President. I did not get that answer. I'd have to
just put that on the thing for your meeting.
Yeah, I got it. I'm sorry. I totally forgot about that. I will definitely make sure I ask that question.
Okay. So we'll go back up to the top, unless there are questions of Vice President Lightfoot.
I have a question. Vice President Lightfoot, this is Lachey. I'd like to know how much would it cost to, what is the commitment to replacing the horse that's being sold?
What is the commitment?
Yeah, how much would it
the use
be?
of it,
Yeah.
According to the legislation, is $5,100 from the sale of the mounted horse. Okay?
Right, but are we going to buy another one? And if so, what will it cost? I think that's the question.
That's correct. Thank you.
Got frozen.
Council member, that might be good to ask at.
That's what we're receiving.
Committees.
I'm sorry, it is in the transmittal. Right. So it's being sold, and that's what we're receiving. They're hoping to the funds will be used for the purchase of a new horse. And so my next question to them was, and I understand your question to be, what are we trying to commit to this? So my question to Commander Correa was, what do these horses cost? She said they can go up to expenses for them up to $8,000.
And we've got a couple of questions from agenda review on that, right? Okay. So, all right. We'll go back to the top. Finance.
Hi, yes, Madam President. Nothing major other than those standard resolutions, legislation that we talked about at agenda review. We are going to hold, because we got a work session later in November, not later in November, I think this week, on the city charter, proposed amendment to city charter. So that one will be held in committee, and we'll wait for that conversation. But other than that, it's pretty much standard legislation. And I know questions were submitted for the work session. The budget director is doing a presentation on Thursday, I believe at 6 o'clock for the public, just on the overall city budget. So anybody that's able to tune into that. I would recommend you tune into that. And being that I spoke so long at our last year's meeting, I'll be quiet today and just say the same stuff I said at our last year's meeting still applies as
Oh,
relates
goodness.
to our budget friends. No, no stuff. And then the other thing I add, because I know we're going to do board reports and all that stuff, I might as well just mention now too, because it actually relates to the city budget, is obviously, the convention center continues to be a concern because there's no opening, nothing's happened. In fact, because COVID cases are rising, who knows when we're going to be able to start having larger scale events. So that's also been extremely hard on them. So that's all I really have.
But I was really surprised to see in the thing that Tad Mack sent us over that sales tax revenue was up pretty considerably from not just what they anticipated, I think even from this time last year.
Yeah, I think because we still have that pent up demand. There still is that demand, which kind of does give me hope. That when we're fully reopened, that maybe that demand that has been holding back will happen. Because even if you remember during this, I believe it was June, July, August. The tax revenues were up because we were open. People are still spending money, but the question is it going to be enough to make up the overall shortfalls that we get? And our biggest risk still is state aid because the feds haven't, done anything on that yet. So everyone is still very, very much concerned about that.
Yeah, the other item I would note.
Evan,
Sorry,
we're
go
going to
ahead,
have to, you know what? I've got a cousin. The only time I hear from her when she calls to tell me that one of our relatives died or something. That's the only time I hear from her.
Oh man.
So, Councilmember Evans, I don't want to put you in the category of my cousin, but we only get bad news.
I
We
know.
only get
I know.
bad news.
And you know what? And I feel that way as finance guy. I said to somebody the other day. I said city council members are not gonna like me because all I do is talk about what's not, what's happening. And I said, at some point I need to be able to do some good news. So I'm praying that I can have some good news soon.
I'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
Councilmember Gruber, just a quick note. It was a couple of years ago that New York State started being able to accept online sales for sales tax. So that has been able to impact our number because a lot of the sales tax revenue that we are receiving is from online sales, not just brick and mortar stores.
All right. Councilmember Patterson.
Okay, so not a whole lot going on in NBD this month. We are holding the item 381, the launch IT. So that one's going to be held in committee. We did receive the CDS Monarch project, which is under some time constraint for getting that one moved, but they've been working on it for quite some time. Other than that, pretty nice, quiet month.
Councilmember Gruber.
I think there's only 4 pieces. Two that I think I just want to point people's attention to. I mentioned this in the agenda review, but one of the pieces is related to the youth sports complex and the McGuire building. And I had not seen this before. I don't know if others had, but we are going to be utilizing an existing contract that the town of Greece has with a contractor to be able to get some economies of scale and some efficiencies. And that's just a thing that any municipality can do. They can leverage and buy off of an existing contract if the terms are favorable. So if you go through and look at that piece, that led to a lot of questions for me, but Commissioner Jones gave a lot of information, and the group that we're buying off, that we're using, is quite accomplished. So that's one. The other piece is State Street. People are probably going to hear a lot about the State Street redesign as we did about East Main Street. There's a lot of really passionate people about that project, and we have a long way to go. The design thus far, I think, is very much in its early phase. We're just being asked to approve the dollars and to approve the design process. There will be many public meetings and public hearings, but I can't think of a more important street for us to get right in our design than State Street, especially right outside of City Hall, right outside of the Red Wings Stadium, right outside of High Falls. We got to get it right, and it's going to be a multi-year project. This is just approving the dollars and getting the design started.
Too bad it doesn't go down the lake.
Yeah, it's a very short section of State Street. I told Commissioner Jones, I'm dead set upon being able to ride my bike with my kid to a Red Wings game. I think you go to most minor league baseball stadiums and you will see that they have that they're really trying to get people to walk and bike around the stadium. We got to do that in downtown Rochester.
Somebody's phone is ringing.
That's fine. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, and we got the public safety, recreation, human services. So let's talk about OPI legislation. Mary, thank you for your comparison. That was helpful. I think one of there were some sort of fundamental concerns with the legislation previously as well. One had to do with, well, I think they changed it. It was that this body a body appointed by the mayor could investigate council. And that still is a part of this. So that's something we have to look at. Who should do that? Who should be able to do that? How should that happen? It's those kinds of little nagging details that we need to take a look at.
One thing I noticed that was added was that it doesn't allow departments to do, including council, to do their own investigations. It would have to be referred to the OGI, whatever it is, would be. But so the investigation we're doing now, we wouldn't be able to do under this legislation.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So Madam President, I would say amen to what you just said, and that's my fundamental concern. And I'm just need to be transparent there. That's my fundamental concern.
President Scott, can I just ask what prompted it in 2016, and what do you sense is prompting? I mean, I assume what's prompting it now is partially the investigation that we launched and the idea around investigations generally, maybe, I don't know, but what prompted it in 2016?
I'm not sure. I believe that the director of OPI encouraged the consideration of that. He had gone to the training about the subject, and I don't know whether there was some move across the country where more cities were doing that or something along those lines that sort of elevated it for more consideration. Beyond that, I don't know of any particular set of circumstances that generated the concern.
And so would it be, with that in mind, with it being, I assume it was still Director Weir at the time, is the thought that it would be simply transitioning the staff that we have now into new titles and new job descriptions?
Well, I would imagine, but it's not addressed in the legislation. But I think we just have to think about it. The other thing that was changed in it, I believe, is that the idea of having it not end with the mayor's term before was that it would ensure that it was not tied to a political, that it required additional thought and additional process. And that's changed in this one. So there are a number of little pieces that we need to take a look at. And it's not clear, sort of, Councilmember Gruber, in line with your question, it's not clear what it is we're trying to cure. What is it specifically we're trying to address, trying to correct? So I would want to know more about that.
And unfortunately, anybody that's ever been through a chronic illness, you never want the cure to be worse than the disease. And
right.
I just want to make sure that that's not happening in this case. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very important to proceed with trepidation here, only because it's a city charter. You guys know, we just had a conversation before about, what it took us to get other city charter, except for, I think the easiest one was changing the committee name. That wasn't hard, right? But for something like this, that's a big change. That's a big change to be doing in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely interested in the conversation, and I think it's a good piece to look at to have a broader discussion. but I wouldn't be in favor of just like doing it quickly without more thorough discussion.
And another important element of it has to do with subpoena power. That's a critical element in terms of who has it and who can have it and who can use it and all of that. And that's changed a bit in this piece. So the work session, and BJ, I hope you captured some of that, so that at the work session, they can go into detail also about those kinds of concerns, especially being specific to address what they believe the issues are that this legislation would address and how this action would remedy that.
Can I say that I did hear two things that it would fix, which is that it would have a term, and like you were saying that could increase the
Come on,
independence.
criminal. Come on.
Let's say talking to her
Just a little
dog.
bit.
And I believe that in the OPI that political activity isn't forbidden, which in this legislation it is. So those are two things that I think it does fix.
Okay. So we're right at 2:00 and we're beyond our usual limit. So we don't have time to go through our board.
Loretta, can I just ask one last question about that?
Sure.
So we're gonna have a work session and be able to ask some more kind of
Right.
questions. And no matter what, this is not coming up for a vote in November, correct?
Right. We're not putting it on for November.
Work session is November 12th.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any
I did want
closing?
to ask, sorry,
Go
just
ahead.
one question. Councilmember Lachey Harris and I are on a couple of these committees around the mental health conversations, and wondered, in what way do you want us to report back to you about, kind of what we're hearing?
Well, we just never seem to get enough time to get reports from the boards.
Yeah. Do
So
you want it in email maybe?
that would be helpful. And then we
Okay.
could share that also. And the same for the other boards and commissions that you all are on. If there's something really, that's impactful or that we all should know sooner than later, then just send us a note. Otherwise, we will try and squeeze in time to get it at the table so that you could share it then. So, because we need to talk about raise and all of that.
Perhaps President Scott, I could make the suggestion that Katie or I, unfortunately more likely Katie, will reach out to the council members just to get an update on those committees and put it all into one document to send around. I have roughly put together a chart of what I think people are on, so it'll be a good chance for us to make sure that we have all of that information put together as well.
Right.
So we'll take care of that.
Right.
Katie,
Right.
remind me, please.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you,
for
Madam
your
President.
time.
Thank you, everybody.